Her name is Dr. Lisa Littman. And if her name sounds familiar, it's because she has played a big role in one of the most intense national debates the country has seen in recent years. It all started when Dr. Littman began to notice an unusual number of teenagers announcing that they were transgender, in particular, girls announcing that they were now suddenly transgender on a scale that did not make sense statistically. It seemed to her like an anomaly.
There's this thing that TERFs and other transphobes like to say about trans people, that being trans is just a trend, or the number of trans people is increasing at an alarming rate, or children are being forced to be transgender. And obviously, that's all very silly. Trans people have been around just as long as cisgender people have. Plenty of cultures across the world have historically had more than two genders, and transgender people have even existed within the Western imperialist hegemony, whether they're well treated or not. As far as we can tell, trans people just exist. They'll just pop up anywhere that cis-normativity exists. And that's an important thing to mention. Transgender people only exist relative to cis-normative culture. See, I'm a gender abolitionist, which basically means I believe that gender is something to opt into rather than something that is automatically assigned at birth. You can be whatever gender feels right to you, regardless of what genitals a doctor may observe at your birth. And under this system, no one would be transgender, at least not in the current understanding of the word. Because transgender means identifying with a gender different than that assigned at birth. So if you're not assigned any gender at birth, you aren't identifying with a new gender, but only opting in once you're able. My point being that as long as Western culture continues to assign newborns into arbitrary social classes based only on the appearance of their genitals, some of those people are going to reject the assigned social class. It's just that simple. And I think a great way to understand this is through math. There's this graph that I really love. It's a graph of left-handedness over time in the United States. The number of left-handed people remains relatively low until the start of the 20th century, when it increases pretty quickly until it levels out around 12%. And what's nice about this example is that being left-handed is pretty much apolitical as far as identities can go. At least it is now, in the year of our Lord, 2021. So we're able to take a detached look at why rates were historically low, then increased over the course of a few decades, and then leveled out. Left-handedness historically has been associated with uncleanliness or even evil. But obviously that is a very outdated way of thinking. So what's more likely, that the number of left-handed people shot up and then leveled out on its own? Or maybe there are more left-handed people because our culture no longer beats it out of our children. And not only is this obvious if you look at the rates of left-handedness over time, but we can also look at it among different age groups. Even today, older people are much less likely to identify as left-handed. And this 12% number really sticks out to me. It's a minority, sure, but it's not insignificant. We're talking more than 1 in every 9 people being a lefty. But the real reason 12% is so interesting is because that seems to be the same proportion of millennials who identify as transgender or gender non-conforming. This is according to a 2017 Harris poll conducted on behalf of GLAAD. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, studies by other institutions have the total number of transgender adults at less than 1%. But, as far as I can tell, these studies make use of pre-existing demographic data like the decennial census. Now, I'm no expert in statistics, but I know gathering census data is going to be a little less precise than directly asking people. My assumption is that most people, regardless of their true gender, will complete the census with their legally recognized gender, which in many cases would suggest that they are cisgender. Like, lots of trans men probably still have F on their birth certificate and driver's license. So if they're filling out a legal form like the census, they're probably more inclined to list their legal gender rather than their actual gender. By contrast, if an LGBTQ advocacy group is conducting a survey in which they directly ask people if they are transgender, I would guess that would produce a more accurate result. And part of the reason I love the comparison to left-handedness is because left-handedness used to be political, even though it was just a natural occurrence. The status quo was to normalize right-handedness and demonize left-handedness. And so just being left-handed became a political act. And being transgender is basically the same, right? It just naturally occurs, and it is only political because it stands in opposition to the status quo of cis-normativity. Once transphobes decide to stop beating it out of our children, it's going to fade into the background and become just a thing that some people are. Just like left-handedness, or for that matter, being gay. Like, think of The Office. In 2006, season 3 of The Office premiered with the episode Gay Witch Hunt. This was 22 minutes of network television about what if you found out your coworker was gay? And that seems quaint by today's standards. It's quaint even by the show's own standards. By 2012, when the show was on its last season, the same gay character was best friends with the evangelical Christian, but was sleeping with her state senator boyfriend behind her back. In just 6 years, we went from holy shit, this dude is gay to, but what if he slept with a straight politician? And we see this reflected in real life. I grew up kind of at the perfect time for this. If I had been gay, I probably would have had to come out to my parents and friends and family, etc. But because I'm simply pansexual and therefore straight passing, I never had to have that conversation. And now here I am just casually mentioning it in passing, no coming out required. When you meet someone gay in 2021, you're not going to have a whole sitcom episode about it. They're just going to casually mention that they have a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a non-binary friend or whatever, and everyone moves on. Okay, maybe not everyone moves on, but you get the point. Same with left-handedness. It may come up in conversation, but no one's going to give it a second thought. And that's why I'm excited to see the proportion of transgender people rise. Not because I believe more people are transgender than in the past, but because it means that acceptance and visibility are on an upward trend. And whether the true proportion of transgender people is 1% or 12% or 50%, I'm excited to see their graph level out. Thank you so much for watching this video. I know it was a bit of a shorter one. I hope you liked it. I hope it was insightful. If you did like it, please like, comment, subscribe. I think something around 80% of my viewers are not subscribed. So if you're in that 80% who has been watching but hasn't subscribed yet, go ahead and click that subscribe button down here. Click on the bell if you want notifications. Feel free to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Patreon. I've restructured the Patreon where some of my older videos I have privated. So if you want access to some of the older videos, you can sign up for the Patreon and you will get your name in the end credits as well. Please feel free to share this around on Facebook, Discord, Reddit, wherever you see fit. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in a little bit.